Great. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. Oh, one more coming in. I really appreciate you all coming out today. I sort of had images of two people, which in some ways would have been calmer for me, but I am really thrilled with this, so thank you so much. I love that you get to see my name here in the video. I think that's kind of funny. I feel I don't have to fully introduce myself, but I'm Toni Losey. And I just want to thank the Craig, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to show here. I really am thrilled with the space and how this all came together, so thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. And just a quick little throw out to Arts Nova Scotia as well, who generously supported the putting together of this show, which allowed me to go so much further in my exploration of surfaces and glazes and all that good stuff. So I just want to make sure I get that out there too. I want to start just by telling you a little story. Not that long ago, I had the great experience of getting to make some props. So this is a little aside from what we're looking at here. Some props for a movie called The Lighthouse. I'm assuming some of you know that it was filmed here in town, or not in town, I guess, in Nova Scotia. And I had this chance to make all these dishes for Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson to use, which was quite exciting and a nice little ego boost. But what was really wonderful was I got to go to the opening of the movie quite recently and got to listen to Willem Dafoe speak. Turns out he's a pretty down-to-earth kind of guy. I like to feel like we're on a first-name basis, though truly he would not recognize me at all. But it was quite interesting because during his talk, am I moving too much? No. During his talk, he was asked if he gets into character all the time, or if it's just for the actual when it's filming, when the film is on. And he came back with an answer, which was basically, my paraphrasing, is he approaches it with the idea of use it when you need it. And I thought that's kind of fantastic. And surprisingly similar, I think, to how a lot of artists approach their work. I poured everything into this, and I had to trust that what I poured in would come together and work together and become this show. And I think it did. I hope it did. It certainly is something I feel really proud of. So this show, as I was building it, was a really different approach for me. It really felt like an unknown how the pieces would all come together. Working in my studio with so many small pieces, it was hard to trust how those pieces would all come together. If you can imagine all of these very brightly colored works all on a single little shelf, it was very hard to get that full picture until it was in this space. So it was exciting to see it come together. I started back into sculptural work full-time, really, probably about, the years start to blur as we get a little older, don't they? I'm going to say it was about 5 years ago when I went back to Nazca, and I had such fantastic opportunity there working alongside, some of you will know the names, but Rory McDonald, Neil Forrest, Joan Bruno, and they really started to influence some of the things that I was interested in. And really, my work started to take off, really focusing on form and on movement, but at a much larger scale than what we see here today. Nazca gives you this fantastic opportunity to work in a gigantic studio with gigantic kilns, and you have full access to all materials all the time. And I got to really delve into this experience and push those boundaries in this larger scale. But recently, having graduated, heading back to my personal studio, had to shift how I was looking at things. And it was really interesting to see how the work started to develop based on the studio I was working in. Sorry, the little card switch here. This past summer, I got the opportunity to go on a residency in Cape Breton. And it was really I wasn't sure what a residency in Cape Breton would all entail. Sometimes staying close to home, you wonder how far is that going to push you. But it was a fantastic opportunity, wandering through the woods. Oh, there's one of my residency buddies now. Welcome. Wandering through the woods and getting to walk through and see it through the eyes of the scientists that we were going on this residency with. And they were talking about our changes in climate and how our forests were really dying. We have all these things happening in our climates. We have weird bugs that have been brought over from Europe that we can't fight off. Our trees are dying, and you're seeing all of this decay. And it was really sad and overwhelming, actually. But in that moment, you're seeing all of these things dying. And I started looking at this and then noticing, whether it be mushrooms and fungi and lichen starting to grow in just these little delicate spots amongst all of this real sadness that you're seeing. You've got these little moments of beauty. And I started thinking about that as I was developing this show and thinking about those little moments and trying to capture that. So as I built this show, I actually thought about it as my own personal lab. I'm not a scientist. That's probably obvious. But it really was kind of the impetus for this show. So I actually thought about how to show the work before I made the work. And went out and found, I know a few of you have asked me about displays and things like that, but it was a very important part of how I wanted to show you this work. And it really helped direct the size and the scale that I was working on. And it pushed me to work smaller. And at first, that was a little scary for me because there's a comfort in working in the sizes we know and in the ways we know. But there's something that I'm so excited about with how this came together, where I think, because I catch myself doing it, you come in and you get in close to each of the pieces. You want to have that intimate moment where you just get to look closely and experience what's happening there. And it's kind of precious. And I think that was something that has really changed how I've been working. There's a precision and a quality that's required when you're working in this kind of scale that I'm excited to keep pursuing because I think it's really, I find it exciting. So just moving along, sorry. So moving on from some of the small pieces, I know probably some of you have noticed there are still some larger scale works in the gallery, both over on that side as well as just on this table here. And the one that's on this table was really a direct response to this idea of this decay and dying, actually, that our world is going through. And I know we all are harping on this so much, and it's hard to handle. I think it's overwhelming. And so when I first started building that, I was thinking about kind of the loss of life. And I was reading it in a really linear way. And I think it's funny that you can be surprised by your own work, because I thought, okay, this is the image of something dying, of loss. And it was when I finally had the opportunity to put it together as a whole piece, because as I've harped on, my studio small, so I actually had no way to set this up officially together as a whole piece until I was in a larger space. And I started to realize that is just as easily talking about new beginnings as it is ends. And I think there's something really exciting about this idea that we can change that dialogue, that we can actually switch that around. So as I was creating these collections of these small pieces, I felt like I was trying to preserve something, trying to hold on to these small pieces, because the loss was hard for me. But when reading that and realizing that can also switch, who's to say that this collection of pieces isn't also just like the seeds of a new beginning? So I always struggle with how to explain that well, but I think switching that dialogue and choosing to look at it from the other side can be a really interesting thing, especially given how much we're being focused right now in that singular direction of loss, I think. So I realize this was probably fairly short, but I want to thank you guys for hearing a little bit of the story about why I created all of this. I also know I've got some ceramic-y type folks in here who are probably going to want to ask about not only why I made it, but maybe some of the hows. And so I wanted to make sure that we had a good opportunity to have some conversation around maybe the specific pieces as well. So thank you. Thank you very much.